exercises in the CLC so that you can get credit for the things you have taken. Another note I want to bring up is that we have our RAC course, which is that fundamental that everybody takes. We have our walk courses. There are 4 of them. And again, those are pretty commonly assigned to people after they complete the RAC course. Additionally, we package up our new courses and release those in what we call seasonal readiness training. And seasonal readiness training is basically a way to let people know what's been new or updated or what might be a hot topic or relevant topic for the coming year. These are sent out to the SUs and the SSD chiefs in the regions. I know that sometimes those don't always filter down to everybody, so you can also check in on the Employees of NWS Facebook group. We repost things there, and on the Warning Decision Training Division's Facebook group, we post things there as well. We're looking for ideas of better ways to make sure we get that communicated to everybody in the field. So if you have ideas on how to get that information out, we're listening and we're looking for those too. So let's start with the radar and applications course. And again, I'll remind you, anybody can take these modules. If you took the RAC course, 5 or 10 years ago, a lot of things can change. So it is worthwhile to check in on it and get the fundamentals refreshed or updated. On our website and in the CLC, you can navigate to the RAC main page, and then there's a section there on warning methodology, and that is, if I blow that out here, storm-based warning fundamentals is technically what it's named here. And all of these modules were updated substantially in 2018, with minor tweaks continuing every year since then. And those were updated to reflect newer warning practices and guidance and best practices from the field. So the first module in this group focuses on the basics of drawing warning polygons. That can include things like storm mode and the threats that are associated with the storm, and also the storm motion and evolution, just the fundamentals of drawing a box around something that's dangerous, as my colleague Justin likes to say. The second module, we add a little bit of complexity with additional considerations. We especially focus on geopolitical boundaries and polygon shaping. And a point we've really tried to emphasize is making intentional decisions. If you include a sliver of a county, make sure that it was intentional and that that county really was threatened by the severe weather. Likewise, if you leave out a county, be intentional that it was actually far enough removed from the threat to do so. We also talk about things like segmentation and polygon overlap, some of those nitty-gritty non-meteorological factors that get into making a warning decision. In the third module, we again add just a little bit more complexity, and we start to talk about some scenarios like splitting supercells, training thunderstorms, and tornadoes embedded in lines. Now, there are a lot of scenarios that get complex when we're issuing warnings, and even these 3 things could use a deeper look than what we give them here in the RAC. But we introduce that it's not always textbook and it's not always a straightforward decision. And we'll also get into a bit of a deeper look when I start talking a little more about walk severe. And then finally, fourth module. In the fourth module, we cover impact-based warnings. There used to be 2 fairly long modules that covered this, and this one module replaced that and streamlined it, adding some emphasis on when to include considerable or catastrophic tags in tornadoes. We've incorporated some continually updating research in that area, and just some findings from our experiences as instructors and from seeing the field. So we also review what the impact wording does, that the templates will apply for different thresholds of severe threats, hail and tornado combinations. And I think that was it for that one, wasn't it? Finally, the 5th module in our series is focusing on what to do after a warning is issued. And this was new in 2018. We had never before trained really on SVSs. So we've got a module now that focuses on using SVSs for follow-up statements, cancellations, and expirations. And it teaches what the directives require for updates and also some best practices using these SVSs as an IDSS and communications tool. and a little bit of knowledgeology of how to use them. And this actually became the inspiration for a new module, which is the 10 steps to issuing a warning. We're doing, again, continual updates on these modules, and I'll get to that 10 steps one in a minute. I wanted to mention here, though, that we've been working very closely with the Central Region SSD and also the Central Region's TWIP team to incorporate some of their recent recommendations. And these happen to have come out at about the same time, but they are different things. One of the new factors that has come out is the best practices and findings from the Table Rock Lake incident report. That there were some findings specific to issuing severe thunderstorm warnings for winds that we wanted to make sure we included, and we have included in our basic guidance. We also are going to use that as inspiration for something in Walk Severe, coming up again in a couple of minutes. We have been incorporating some TWIP recommendations, and that, along with some newly published QLCS tornado research, is informing a bit more about how we approach QLCS tornado warning guidance. A little bit of updating for that in RAC, a lot more for Walk Severe. And then another big update that we're making is that we are converting those quick IBW cases that are associated with this section of RAC to be AWIPS based. In the past, they have been GR2 based, but we, sort of one of our mottos is to fight like you train and train like you fight. And we don't issue warnings from GR2. We issue them from AWIPS. So we want to make sure people are practicing using AWIPS based imagery because it's more closely associated with how you will make your warning decisions. So we are going to use the West to provide those quick modules in the future. They'll still be quick and easy to do. They'll be self-guided. They'll just be on a different platform. So let's talk just a little bit more about that 10 steps I mentioned. We found when we were doing the workshops for the RAC course that breaking down the process of issuing a warning into steps was very helpful for those who were coming in through the RAC. And because we've developed a 10-step process, it probably makes sense to now teach that as well. So we're creating a module that specifically covers this 10-step process from beginning to end. And you can see the 10 steps listed here. They're very specific and very broken down, but they're also the places that, in our experience, we have found sticking points or some points where mistakes can be made in the process of issuing a warning. So when you start with selecting the warning product type, you know, it's a fairly common mistake to accidentally issue a severe when you meant to issue a TOR, or accidentally issue a new warning when you meant to issue a statement, an SVS. Setting that as the very first step makes sure that you're framing your warning how you meant it to. And then checking the duration, because the default duration depends on that product type. You know, the third thing to do would be to put your point or line on the storm, and then following that to track and check the storm motion. We were finding that that step got overlooked pretty often in the warning process, that especially for updates and statements, it was easy to forget to refresh that motion, make sure the point was still on the thunderstorm where it should be, and that the storm motion was still representative. We then want to make sure folks trim a warning polygon if it's a statement, or create that new one and tweak it as needed. Again, in our experience, this part of the process can be a bit of a time drain as folks really try to get into the details and massage polygons. We want people to be intentional about drawing their polygons and trimming them, but we also want to make sure that people can get into that part of the process and then get back out again. You know, get your polygon made. Don't worry about drawing a ton of extra points on it. It's not going to matter that much. What really matters is getting that warning out once you've decided to issue it intentionally. From there, you get into the text of the warning, selecting the source and the tag if that applies, selecting the hazard and intensity, for example, your hail sizes or your wind speeds, and then your calls to action. You create and quality control the text. You can catch a lot of mistakes in the warning process if you take a moment to look at the warning text before you send it out. Make sure it's the type you wanted. Make sure the storm motion doesn't say 70, or if it does, that was your intent. Just to make sure that the towns and locations in it are included as you meant them to be. Make sure it looks okay. Then send that out. But that's still not the end of the warning process. We're teaching 2 more steps after that. The first one is to hit restart and clear out that hatched ghost polygon. Again, it's easy to make an accident and snap to that ghost polygon later if you're trying to issue a new warning, so that just gets it out of the way. And then we are still encouraging folks to keep track of writing down warnings on their own warning tracking sheets. There's something about having that list physically in front of you in your eyesight that can help you remember that you have 4 warnings in effect and 3 of them expire at the same time. So you probably can't really wait till 5 minutes before the warnings expire to start readdressing them. Just having that physical reminder there is helpful. So that is all new guidance coming out, and hopefully will be nice and clear in our new module. I'm going to move on now to the warning operations course, the severe track. So as with the RAC, this is on our website. There's a section in our website for the all of the walks, and then you can click down to the walk severe. And there are several modules currently that can help you with your warning fundamentals. Most of those are found under our tornado warning guidance section, lessons 1, 2, and 3. And we also have one piece currently on QLCS warnings. I will say that the QLCS modules are going to be updated pretty substantially. So these exist right now, but they're going to be changed a lot for next year. But under the tornado warning guidance lessons, we have parts 1, 2, and 3. Parts 1 and 2 are updated and do reflect some recent publications in QLCS tornadoes in particular. And again, credit to Justin Gibbs for doing that. Justin is really becoming our QLCS focal point, if you will, and developing expertise and publications in this area. So he is an expert we rely on. We also produced a new module on wind fundamentals last year. There's a reason that we don't have a lot on wind for training, and there's a reason that it's hard to warn on wind. There just simply aren't as many environmental and radar characteristics that can help us define wind threats, like there are with hail and with tornadoes. So it remains a challenging area to warn on and to train on. We monitor publications pretty hard for new science that might help us out, new tools to put in the toolbox. And we try to keep an eye on best practices from the WFOs to find new tools too. Boy, if you've got something that works for you or works for your office on warning for winds, and you don't think we have seen it, it sure wouldn't hurt to contact us and let us know, because we don't necessarily see everything that's out there. And we really are trying to gather new expertise in this area. And I'll point out too that Kevin Grempler is the employee of ours who is our wind focal point, or becoming our wind focal point. He's the one developing this module and building expertise in the area of forecasting severe winds. I kind of feel like he drew a short straw getting stuck with the winds, but he is, I guess he's from Missouri and has had a lot of exposure in his lifetime to the windy types of thunderstorms and has a lot of interest in this area. So I mentioned this just briefly, but we are essentially almost throwing away almost all of Walk Severe in the coming year. We're undergoing a major revamp of Walk Severe that's going to be released in December for FY21. So those who are taking Walk Severe currently, it's still good stuff. It's still what you're going to learn from. Those who take Walk Severe in the future are going to get a course that looks a bit different and has quite a bit of new information. One area we are really emphasizing and adding more to is the area of mesoanalysis. We will be adding several introductory modules on mesoanalysis. We're starting to talk about it in this year's walk as part of our instructor-led webinar, but we're going to go into more depth for FY21 and beyond. Data fusion is a bit with mesoanalysis, where you're talking about incorporating all of the data sources that are out there to make decisions, including not only radar, but also satellite, lightning products, observations, and many other things. Jim Ledoux is our data fusion expert and will be helping with that part. We're updating both our hail and our wind guidance. We're also adding a module that's actually going to be a first for us in WDTD, that it's joint among several of our walks, Walk Severe, Walk Flash Flood, and Walk Core, which is becoming Walk Human Factors next year. And that combined module will be talking about the combined hazards of tornadoes and flash floods that overlap each other. There have been a number of incidents where these overlapping hazards were associated with casualties and difficult decision making. And that can include everything from Hurricane Harvey and a landfalling hurricane to an event like El Reno in 2013, where a tornado warning and a very highly visible and famous tornado occurred, but the flash flood actually killed more people. So there's been some literature that's come out in the last year or so related to tornado flash flood hazards, and we're going to get together with our communication and IDSS side of training to really come up with a module that helps guide both warning decisions and communication of these hazards. We're going to continue to step up what we have on QLCS tornadoes, thanks to Justin, and update our tornado warning guidance. We're also going to go into advanced warning methodology. This is where we'll have more detailed guidance on how to deal with some of those really complicated issues. We hear a lot that people want to talk more about how to warn for QLCS tornadoes. So this is going to be one place where we start to address that, is, you know, more in the box drawing area and the warning decision area. How do we get that warning out? What's the most efficient, practical, and clearly communicated way to do it? We're going to get into that here. And then finally, we have always had a WES case associated with Walk Severe in the past that gets sent out to all the offices. And it's usually a pretty big size case. It's the kind of case that takes you several hours to get through, with a lot of questions going with it. We thought about this even before we entered an era of extended work from home, or folks who are distancing even while at work in their offices, that it might be helpful to folks in the field if the WES modules weren't quite so large. We don't always get those giant chunks of time to do a full WES case. So what we want to do is make the WES cases a little more bite-sized, maybe something that takes an hour or two to complete instead of 4 hours or more. And to the extent that a SUE is comfortable with it, we want them to be self-guided if that's what the SUE wants. We recognize there will be SUEs who do want to sit with their employees and help them get through a case, but for those who want to just let people do things on their own, we want these to be self-contained. We want it to be that you can sit down at the WES and get it going beginning to end. And if the SUE doesn't have to be there or doesn't want to be there, you can still do it yourself. So we are really excited about all these changes coming out for Walk Severe. This is a lot of new stuff and new information, and really this is only the beginning of a revamp. We have a future plan that goes out a couple more years that will include things like training for verification and climatologies, and also even deeper into some of those topics that continue to be hot, like mesoanalysis and data fusion. And I didn't specifically list them here, but we do have some modules on CAMs. Those will be updated to reflect changes to guidance. We have a lightning series that is pretty darn new and in good shape, but we are going to add a module to that too. And then we have a couple on Prob Severe as well. And as I say, all these things are going to be included in Walk Severe. For those who are assigned the full course, you'll get to do all of these. But again, if you just want to take a couple of pieces that sound interesting or relevant to you, you can always take just the pieces that you want. So I'm going to wrap this up. And if you see training gaps or areas that you want to learn more about in anything that WDTD covers, but for this conversation, you know, specifically about warning guidance, we do want to hear from you, and we want to know what you're thinking. We do continually update our training and continually develop new stuff. So if we don't get into the most recent training cycle, we'll get into the next one, and that fresh information will be out there probably within a year or so. So if you have thoughts or ideas, you can channel it through your SUE to send it to us. You can also contact one of us directly. The RAC and each one of the WOCs has an email address for help, and that's listed in every module, but you're also welcome to contact me directly. I would use my email, not my phone, because I haven't been at my office in a couple months. I can either help you or channel the requests to the people here who can help you. So I am a little under the time that was allotted to me, which is good because I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts or feedback. And again, I'm talking about this area a little bit specifically right now, but if you have questions related to any of WDTD's training, I am more than happy to discuss and answer those too.